Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, fewer blackouts and more jobs. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa defends his record and promises better days ahead in his election year State of the Nation address. The stakes are high and some voters' patience is running low when it comes to the ruling ANC party. Also, outrage among civil society in Senegal over the postponement of the presidential election that had been due to be held this month leads to calls for mass mobilisations from religious leaders, teachers and press organisations. And the hope offered by private clinics and skilled staff in Tunisia to people hoping to start a family has led to the growth in the medical tourism industry, which overall attracts millions of people to the country every year. But first, South Africa's president promised that as years of crippling electricity blackouts was within reach, as investments into renewed energy are ramped up. Cyril Ramaphosa said that the sector will create thousands of new jobs. Thursday's State of the Nation address comes as the ruling ANC party struggles in the polls ahead of this year's elections. Eunice Masson tells us more.
This year's State of the Nation address is taking place against the backdrop of a general election taking place later this year. We also have the ruling party, the ANC, facing a lot of internal and external challenges. For the first time in 30 years, the party's majority position is not guaranteed in this year's election. And it was expected that President Cyril Ramaphosa would focus on the successes of the ruling party over the past 30 years, and that's exactly what he did. The president, in his address, said that the government ensured that the nation is more equal in enabling more job opportunities by initiating a childcare grant and also creating a diverse economy. But opposition parties do not agree.
He mentioned all the opportunities and the jobs for the young people in South Africa, but the unemployment rate amongst the youth in South Africa is more than 60%. He's totally out of contact with the reality of South Africa.
There are families in South Africa that are in millions that cannot eat 3 full meals a day. And so for the president to say that there are less people who are hungry in the country, but in the same speech say that there are people who are 9 million that are getting grants is a contradiction. So I'm disappointed that that is how he sees it.
Well, fresh fighting erupted between M23 rebels and Congolese forces in eastern DR Congo on Thursday. The unrest has sparked mass displacement and cut off most supply routes in the region. Thousands of people have been fleeing deadly bombings and violence in the town of Sake, near the provincial capital of Goma. Clashes with militants have also reportedly broken out in other villages in Nyiragongo territory to the north and the Masisi district to the west of the city. And Ghana has suspended plans for a controversial 15% electricity tax. The proposal sparked a public outcry when it was announced earlier this year. The government had insisted that the measure was needed to alleviate some of the pressure on public spending caused by the pandemic. In 2022, public debt was more than 90% of GDP. But trade unions and businesses rejected the power tax, saying that it was unsustainable amidst the current cost of living crisis. Strikes had been planned for next week, but authorities say that they'll now keep talking with the unions for now in a bid to avoid industrial action. And 39 lawmakers from Senegal's opposition coalition have filed a legal challenge to the postponement of presidential elections that had been due on the 25th. Now, the normally stable country has been plunged into political upheaval by President Macky Sall's push to delay the polls. Clovis Casali brings us more from Dakar.
Appalled by the postponement of the presidential election, the opposition is organising its response. And a new civil society collective has emerged. It's made up of human rights NGOs, unions, as well as religious leaders. And they're calling for all Senegalese citizens to act and to show their disapproval of President Macky Sall. They want Muslims to turn up dressed in white and with the Senegalese colours at Friday prayers. Teachers' unions also calling for a nationwide strike. We spoke with the coordinator of this collective. Take a listen.
Teachers' unions are very efficient in carrying out strikes, and this time they're united. All our actions are designed to attain our common goal, and that is to force the government to make a U-turn. It is our one and only objective.
Here in Dakar, many are telling us they're worried about taking en masse to the streets after deadly clashes with police in previous demonstrations. The Senegalese government says it had no choice but to push for the postponement of this presidential election. There were irregularities, they say, and accusations of corruption during the campaign, all this meaning that the result would have been disputed, contested, and would have led to instability.
Well, staying with Senegal, the outrage among civil society has also been fuelled by a crackdown on civil liberties and freedom of the press. Senegalese press organisations have published a collective statement to denounce the suspension of the licence of the private broadcaster Walf TV. Sam Bradpeace sent us this report.
Before we watched Wolf TV on channel 23.
While many TV channels in Senegal are still available, one is conspicuously missing. Walf TV hasn't broadcast in 3 days.
I'm angry because before we could follow the news, it's just wrong. Wolf was our source of information.
Authorities here have suspended the channel's broadcast license, accusing it of calling for violence during protest coverage on Sunday. The journalists there are still publishing online as a gesture of resistance.
Wolf will always stand, no matter how many blows we take. It's the 4th time that they have cut our signal since March 2021, so we're used to it. Even this feels like a terrible blow. We need to remind ourselves that we're living in a country where individual and collective freedoms are being violated.
The suspension of Walf TV is the latest in a long line of government overreaches, according to this activist.
Macky Sall's strategy is to control the narrative. This involves threatening the press and forcing the media to censor itself. Besides Wolf TV, no other media dares to cover protests on the ground.
The government's communications minister didn't respond to our interview request. Many local journalists are calling for a nationwide media strike within the next few days.
Now, a day after the places of the Africa Cup of Nations final were locked in, and there is still jubilation. Hosts Ivory Coast will meet 3-time champion Nigeria for the final clash of the tournament on Sunday. Nigerian fans are not ready to give up their excitement yet.
This is how victory looks and sounds like. Nigeria had just triumphed, beating South Africa after 4-2 on penalties on Wednesday, in the latest of many dramatic matches at the Africa Cup of Nations.
I'm so excited, honestly, because they failed us. We youth cannot do anything, but now we are proving to them that we can do more than what they expected. So I'm so happy.
We are happy that Nigeria actually beat South Africa. In as much as the VAR wanted to cancel our goals, but then we did well. And I'm happy, and I know that Nigeria will come out victorious. We have to carry that African Cup of Nations. Nigeria will go.
Nigeria is the king of the match. If Ivory Coast, we are going to beat them 3-0. I'm telling you the truth.
The man who saved the day, goalkeeper Stanley Nwabali.
Oh, credit to these guys, credit to my teammates, the management. At a point, we felt like it's not coming. But now we've seen ourselves in the finals. We must enjoy this moment and feel so happy.
But the biggest challenge of all is still to come for the 3-time champion. At the AFCON final, the Super Eagles will face the Elephants from Ivory Coast, who might seize the chance to take revenge on its old foe.
Now, every year, more than 2 million visitors head to Tunisia for medical care. Medical tourism is today a thriving sector, which represents half of the revenue of the country's entire tourism industry. Fertility treatment is one of the most popular. Clarice Fortuné with more.
Bintou Yunusa seems a little nervous. She came from Niger, hoping doctors can finally help her conceive, after 3 years of unsuccessful treatments.
My husband told me it was time to have a child. I told him we tried all that, but it didn't work. So he advised me to come here to Tunisia. One of his sisters-in-law went 7 years without having a child. She came here to Tunisia. She was the one who recommended Dr. Ziwa to me. She had an insemination and had twins.
Bintou is one of the 2 million foreigners to seek treatments each year in Tunisia. Medical tourism is one of the few thriving sectors in a flagging economy. Libyans, Algerians, and more nationals from sub-Saharan Africa all come attracted by prices lower than those found in Western countries.
Those who came from England, Switzerland, North America, Canada, and the United States, they came because the costs are 10 times cheaper here in Tunisia than in the United States. In vitro fertilization costs $30,000, whereas in Tunisia, at most, it will be $2,500 or $3,000.
But challenges remain, like the lack of direct flights with certain sub-Saharan African countries, and visas are often difficult to obtain. Still, medical tourism has strong economic potential, with more than €1 billion in annual revenues. Last year, medical tourism accounted for half of the entire tourism sector's income.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa. Thanks for joining us, though. Do so again if you can. Till then, take care.
我一定是有什么事情，我肯定就烦的事情啊。首先烦的事情，我一定是第一时间找他。
他呢，现在做得很好，都没有离开你，只是换了一种方式陪伴你。
同学，你好。根据数据显示，你的税务产出、绩效表现、调薪实现等均已达到加薪要求。
看到看了对吧？所以你看，其实我没有在播，我就正在这里坐着，然后我现在就可以去忙我自己的事情了。
China, the rule of AI, in Reporters on France 24 and France24.com.